So we represent, or we are part of the Edelweiss wealth management ecosystem now. It's a section of Edelweiss Financial that's been taken over by Pacific Alliance Group. It's a PE fund based out of Hong Kong. Soon we'll get rebranded and demerged, listed separately on the exchanges as well. Broadly, this is a low capital, mostly fiduciary and fee income based, low capital based businesses, which comprise largely of wealth management, institutional equities, which is institutional broking, advisory, investment banking, basically, largely focusing around the capital markets and the private equity space. And we've also kind of seeded a small investment management business as part of the EWM ecosystem now. So that's a broad overview for Edelweiss Wealth Management. We cater to clients like FPIs, AIFs, and PMSs largely. Also corporate treasuries, family offices, largely for their custody and clearing requirements. So moving on to what does custody mean? Some of you might be aware, some might be relatively new. You might have looked at it from a fund management perspective till now and not gotten into the operational side of things much. Basically, you have got a custodian, a clearing member, and a broker. So when you execute trades, you execute it through a broker. If you are doing cash equities, they are settled by the custodian with the clearing corporation. And if you're trading in derivatives, that clearing and management of collateral, etc., is done by a clearing member. The custodian is basically a fiduciary who's your representative as an agent of the fund. Will do all the settlements with the clearing corporation, kind of acts as your back office. We do corporate actions, settlements, tracking of any changes that are happening, any regulatory updates that affect your portfolio that will be communicated to you. We ensure that no regulatory breaches are happening. So in that sense, there is definitely almost a daily connect with your custodian. And obviously the reporting that you need to do too as a fund manager to the regulators or others, we also help you in putting together those reports, and a lot of ancillary services like proxy voting, etc., also gets done through us. On the clearing side, fairly similar, but for derivatives. So on derivatives, as you'd be aware, daily mark-to-markets are there, margins have to be maintained. There are compliances to be taken care of in terms of limits, whether you are complying with peak margin requirements and other margin requirements that might be there. So all that is taken care of by our team. You may also want to monitor your positions. So we have, let's say, our online risk management tool as well, which you get a login, and you can monitor your positions, both confirmed trades, unconfirmed trades that may be there. And broker, I think we're all aware of. So typically, how does it work when you sign up with a custodian? So obviously your accounts get set up. There'll be a bank account, a demat account, and a clearing account that will be there, along with, let's say, fund accounting or whatever other setups might be required. Any interaction that may be required with any of your other service providers to ensure data flow both in and out. So if you've got, let's say, an RTA, making sure that whenever an onboarding happens, that communication goes to the RTA or flows from the RTA depending on what structure we finally agree on, depending on your requirements. And then once the operations kick off, then our team or any custodian's team will typically set up a call with your team, go through all the systems that may be there. Each custodian might have a slightly different system. So getting your team familiar with whatever the systems are there, what you need to do, what will be done by the custodian, what kind of daily activities are there, or monthly or any other periodic activities are there. All that, basically that knowledge download happens to make sure that everybody is on the same page. And when you start operations, things go smoothly. And this is, something that we typically offer as custodians. So, but it's a lot of it is generic. So, in terms of safekeeping of assets or settlement services, tracking of corporate events, proxy votings that we spoke about. Custodians can also facilitate onboarding for you in terms of either having their own system or having a tie-up with someone, or ensuring that there is integration between whichever onboarding vendor you choose for digital onboarding, and to make the process smooth and so that you can get it first time right. Uh, Typically, initially, when people started off, you would have investors maybe in the city that you are in, so you can maybe do the onboarding through the offline route as well. But now, with distributors coming in, with online channels opening up, and with a wider reach, people traveling again a lot more, your end investors could be based in any city. Your distributor could be based in any city. To restrict yourself to offline channels then means there's a fair amount of delay that can get introduced. And through digital onboarding, you can take care of a lot of that as well. In terms of people requirement at your end also, you can cut down on that because there'll be a very light touch experience when it comes to digital onboarding. So digital onboarding has picked up significantly in the last year or so, especially during COVID. And then even now, people are realizing that purely from a cost perspective also, it makes sense to do digital onboarding digitally, because then all the updates go to your RTA, your custodian, fund accountant, etc., automatically through the channel, instead of all of them having to do the activity of onboarding the client in their various systems manually. So depending on the custodian, you can have that facilitated for you as well. Also, there are some transactions which are not hit on the screen. So let's say if you want to invest any surplus funds temporarily in mutual funds, or if mutual fund allocation is part of your strategy as well, or you want to subscribe to mutual funds and use them as collateral for your derivative trades. So any for all of these things which happen sort of offline, IPO applications, in some cases the proxy voting does not happen online. At least for one company, it has to be done in person. So if you're holding shares of SBI, then you need someone to go and do the voting as well. So for all these purposes as well, the custodian come in handy, and you should, depending on your strategy, you should figure out what are your requirements and then decide, typically who is it that addresses your requirements the best. Also, you don't want to be talking to 5 different people. So you don't want to be talking to the bank separately, don't want to be talking to, let's say, a fund accounting team separately, or a custody team, clearing team separately. Ideally, you should look for a setup where your bandwidth gets reduced, or your demands on your bandwidth get reduced, so that you can focus on your primary job, which is handling investments and investors. So in that sense, if you have a setup which gives you a central touch point where any query, any work that you might have, you can just go to that touch point, and then that person figures out internally who to approach and get the answers done, or if there are any other queries or issues can be resolved through one person. So typically with somebody with a strong client servicing desk may be an option as well. On the custody side, there are different ways of interacting with the custodian. One is through emails, or you have like an FTP setup, or there is now in the age of DIY where everything is technology enabled and you can do most of the stuffs on your own. It is good to have custody setup that will give you an access to something like what we have, a web custody platform. It allows you to send instructions, queries, service requests, even trade confirmations online. So it saves a lot of time. It ensures there are no errors, and you get everything visible in one single login at your end. So that gives you a good picture at the same login, and it reduces errors and time taken for issues as well. Obviously, you can access reports also on that. Any instructions like if you have to transfer funds, or if you are, let's say, set up in Gift City and have to do fund transfers, those instructions can also be there. If you have to do any redemption requests for your clients, those can also be handled from that. Any voluntary corporate actions where you need to take a call, whether you want to participate or not, all those instructions can also be accepted through the web portal. So this is the digital onboarding that we're talking about. This talks about it in more detail, but that you can get into it later. Essentially, your KYC checks, AML requirements that need to be full, AML checks that are required, ensuring that data goes to all your service providers properly. All that can be handled very efficiently. You can also get access to maybe a dashboard depending on your system, which gives you a picture. So if you have 5 onboardings going on, you can see at what stage each of these onboardings are, where is it stuck, what is the time that's been taken since initiation of the client's onboarding. Because you would want to have internal tags as well. Let's say if you're getting a client onboarded through a distributor or through your direct sales channels as well, you don't want to maybe take 5 days for onboarding. You want to do it in 1 day, 2 days, depending on your setup and requirements as well. So from that perspective, digital onboarding is the way to go, and that can play a significant part in helping you scale as well as you are growing. On the derivative side, if your fund has a strategy that looks at derivatives, it could either be just for hedging, or it could be a long short strategy, or a pure derivatives fund as well. Having a player that understands the requirements of somebody who trades in derivatives and also is geared to kind of pick up on everything. So you might want to trade commodity derivatives, you might want to do cash futures, arbitrage in derivatives as an additional source of income when the market is sideways, you're not getting any great ideas. Just deploy the funds for arbitrage till the time you find something else. Or you may have an active long short fund or a quant based strategy. Depending on your strategy, the kind of returns that you're expecting to generate, a good professional clearing member can help you optimize your collateral mix and ensure that your position limits, etc., adhered to the margin requirements are being met on time. And any reporting requirements that you may have coming out of your trading, that is also handled optimally. So, for example, if you have 2 different strategies running as part of your derivatives trading, and you want a separate report for each of these strategies. Now, you should also check whether your clearing member can support something like that or not. Can you get P&L reports for that, or position reports, so that you can track these strategies independently? Tracking them on your own, sitting down at the end of the day, if depending on how actively you trade or what is the volume of trading, it may be difficult. But for us at Edelweiss, for example, we handle a varied set of clientele. So we've got AIFs, PMSs, we've got FPIs, we've got some domestic brokers that clear through us as well, corporate treasuries, family offices. So we get to see pretty much the entire spectrum of clients that trade. And over the years, we've built up a lot of different bespoke reports that are not part of any standard system. So we believe in a lot of automation. Most of our operational activities, for example, on the clearing side, we are more than 90% automated. On the custody fund accounting side, we are at about 60-70% automation. But in the next 6 to 7 months, we'll get to 90% automation there as well. So it gives you a fairly error-free and also ensures that you get your reports in time. Your transactions, your tax are reduced as well. So if you're doing investment in debt, for example, you know how critical timelines are, otherwise you'll miss the cutoff and you lose 1 day's interest. So we understand that, having handled clientele from varied sources and very different strategies, and we are geared to handle all those kind of requirements as well.